I have 3, 4 customers in a year. To make all of my customers absorb all of those costs from jobs that I may or may not get just doesn't make sense to me. I would rather my customers just directly absorb the cost associated with their project. But now my hourly fee, my rate, my markup does not hold the rate associated with all of the jobs that I'm bidding or paying people to bid and estimate over the course of a year. That's just the way that I operate, and it makes the most amount of sense for me. What is up? Let's get down to it. It is not my normal recording day. It is Thursday. I didn't have time on Tuesday, and then I didn't have time on Wednesday. So here I am on Thursday, around lunchtime. I had a little bit of time in my schedule to hop in here and record this. I'd already pre-wrote the blog. So if you haven't checked out the blog, hop on the website, moderncraftsman.co. Check them out. I write them first, and then I hop on here and record them. So it's just a little bit of a different flavor than what I'm hopping on here and speaking about to the camera. I actually just text messaged Doug and asked him how the midweek numbers are going, because I've been getting so much correspondence from listeners, which has been really nice. So I'm sure that you all by now know this, but I offer consulting for listeners who want to understand a little bit more about my business or are struggling with some. I'm usually doing 1 or 2 calls per week, which is first come, first serve. I try not to book them out really more than 1 or 2 weeks unless there's like a specific date. I try and do them on Tuesdays. You can email me, Tyler at TRG Home. Oops, sorry, my audio just cut out. Tyler at trghomeconcepts.com. Again, I try not to book them out too far in advance, just because I don't always know what my Tuesdays are going to look like. But for example, tomorrow's Friday. I have one tomorrow morning because somebody couldn't make Tuesday work. So I'm flexible with that. But again, I just don't want to book out too far in advance. So it's usually first come, first serve. I'm booking out 1 to 2 weeks in advance, and I'm really trying not to do more than 1 or 2 of them a week, just because I have other stuff going on. But the outreach as far as consulting calls and people just looking for help and then responding to podcasts and giving me their insight and thanking me for what I'm doing. Even listeners who have called in and scheduled a consulting call. Like I just got a text message from somebody this morning who multiple times is like, "Hey, I just want to give you a heads up. What we spoke about has helped me tremendously. And it's changed my business. It's changed what I'm doing with my life. And I'm not really reinventing the wheel. I'm just I understand my lane. I understand what I do as an owner operator, and I understand how I can make money and not have to kill myself, and how I can afford myself a lot of the luxuries that bigger builders have. So I think that I've been able to do that with my business pretty well. And a lot of the lessons that I've learned and what I've implemented into my business is definitely transferable and can transcend into other people's businesses. It's not necessarily market dependent. It's just if you're a smaller type of company, you're an owner operator, and you do a lot of things yourselves and you wear many hats, it's really a matter of capturing your hours and ensuring that you're getting paid for your hours. Excuse me here real quick. My allergies are absolutely horrible this time of year. I also have a cold. Selby has a cold. Tilly has a cold. It's probably all you guys hear is me about my allergies and how sick I am. Um, but I texted Doug and I asked him, I was like, what do the numbers look like on the midweek? And I didn't hear back from him. I literally just texted him this because I'm getting more and more emails every single week, and the quality of the emails are really good and more people just interested. So I don't know if it's that I'm doing something different here. I don't know if just listenership is going up. I don't know. Maybe my content's better. Maybe I'm just getting better at this. I'm not sure. But I want to say thank you to everyone who has called up, everyone who has scheduled some time to speak to me, everyone who's emailing me, telling me their story, feedback on podcasts, things that have helped them when I'm asking out to listeners for questions. It's been really great for me. Um, it's been exciting to see. It's really given me an opportunity to step back and dig into what works for me and why it works for me and how what I'm doing can be transferred to other small business owners. And again, I feel that that's independent of market. It's independent of the type of jobs that you do. I think that if you set yourself up in a way and implement a lot of the things that I do, that you will be able to work a little bit less with the tool belt and make money on the hours for everything business related. So you don't have to work 2,500, 3,000, 3,500 hours in a year to make a decent living. You can put the normal amount of hours in a year and not have to work overtime and weekends and nights and everything else, which I did for 10 years or so. So that being said, today I wanted to dig into a little bit of my pre-construction. So to give you guys some heads up, I have a handful of larger projects for me coming up. Two of which are kitchen renovation, kitchen additions, not huge additions, 600 square feet. One's a little more complicated than another. Um, but I'm digging into the pre-con on these jobs. So I have pre-construction agreements in place. I have architectural plans in place. Um, so all of that's done already. Excuse me. All of that's done already. So this isn't as much like design related and oriented as much as okay, the design's done, whether it's high level architecture, high level design, or more of like a permit set drawings. Where am I going from there? That's what this is going to be about. I'm taking those drawings and where am I going? What's the next step for me? The current job that I'm looking at, I have more of a permit type set of drawings, not super comprehensive. Save a little bit of money for the customer. I realized that I think that we can get away more with like a draftsman type of design, and then we'll bring in a kitchen designer and they will handle the kitchen layout. And then if we need an engineer for structure to sign off on, architect to sign off on, um, and then I'll rely on myself, my subs, to bridge the gap between all of them. But I can't do that at a concession of my own hours. Like I I can't say, "Hey, we're going to save you money by doing this," and then give away all the time for free connecting the dots between all that. That's going to take a lot of time for me. It's going to be meetings with subs. I'm going to have to take the plans and really dissect them. I'm going to have to get more answers from them. Uh, I'm going to need to protect myself as well as the customer, make sure I develop an accurate budget and accurate scope. So I can't just say, "Hey, we're going to save money on a lower level of design and then give away my hours for free." So I think that we are able to spend a little bit less on design, even doing it this way, because there's a lot of overlap with even a more involved high level design. There's still a lot of overlap in things that I'm doing once I get that design that are not that much different from when I have more of like, a bid set type of plans. Um, so that was the plan with this job. It's to take a less developed set of plans and then create an accurate budget, an accurate scope, and then bridge between kitchen designer, the additions fairly straightforward, and my end of things to do all of this pre-construction. So at this point, we developed some loose budgeting. This is what that looked like, which I did. I got hung up last year with that project, and then I had to catch up the beginning of this year. So from like getting this together, I I was not as efficient as possible. This process should not be that complicated. I just had too much going on trying to get things together for a return customer. I wanted to be able to help them out. but what this should look like in a perfect world, and it didn't necessarily look. We did get to this point, but it wasn't as direct and concise as this, and it really should have been. um, what do you think? Like, hey, let's get a preliminary design and scope in place. If you want to do this, right, it's not that much money. Figure out what you want to do, just so I can't even ballpark a number without seeing something on paper. Um, so that was the first step. Okay, we got a rough round of drawings done where I have a floor plan and elevation, and we understand what we want to do roughly in the kitchen. Um, so I take that and now I said, what are you thinking of spending on this job? Numbers came back. I didn't see it happening there. So I said, I think it's going to be closer to this. So we made some adjustments. Okay, we're fine with that. What's the next? So the next step from there is I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into, okay, what's this going to cost? In order to do that, I need those designs to have another revision to them. So at this point, we have like a loose budget. The customer's investment in design is low. Now they need to invest a little bit more in adding another layer to that design. So we go back to the architect. Let's add another layer of a level of design to this so that I can just send this out to subs. Like, I feel, in my opinion, if I send something that's undeveloped out to a sub, that's what I'm going to get in return. That's what I'm going to get back from them. So they're only going to take as much time as they see. Um, if I give them an incomplete document, that's what I'm going to get back. It's going to be a BS number. So, not that I need, a 70-page drawing, but I need something with a little bit more information on it, because realistically, they're just not going to take the time. So that was the next step. So we got a layer of revision to all the drawings, and then at that point, it said, okay, now that they've invested this much in this, here's what the pre-construction part looks like. I'm going to budget an amount of time to do pre-con. That's going to include developing a scope of work for the customer, a budget, site visits with the subcontractors. In this case, I brought a kitchen designer on. So that's going to include um, up to two revisions on the cabinet. So what I did is I went to the kitchen designer, said, how much do you need for this? How much is your hourly rate? What do you think this is going to cost up front? And how long do you think this is going to take? So we budgeted that amount in my pre-con for design. All of those hours are being tracked. And then I looked at my own labor, my own work, how much effort I had to put into this. And I said, I think this is going to take me roughly 1 week worth of time to develop everything between site visits, sending stuff out for pricing, meeting with subs, developing scope, developing budget, back and forth the architect, telling him what we need engineering drawings for to be able to submit permits. And I said, what do I need to make per hour if I'm not in the field to be able to do this back end work? I budgeted X amount of hours at my rate. That was my pre-construction fee. That is not a fee that I put towards the job. That covers all of this pre-con, the development of scope, the development of budget, and getting everything a package together to submit for permitting. So at this point, that's what I'm working towards. I have a signed agreement. I have the whole pre-con paid for. And if we do not hit the numbers that we budgeted for, I will roll the balance over to the work contract of the job. If they don't go with me, I will give them that money back that we didn't work, we didn't earn that money. That money goes back to them. If they sign up for me, that rolls over. And if they don't sign up with me, I keep the amount of work that we put in place. They own the design, they own the permit package, all of that stuff. I used to roll that over the entire thing to a job. And I also used to do that where it's just like a skin in the game number. But I realized it just was too much work for me. I couldn't be in the field. I wasn't making the rate that I needed. And so at the end of the day, even if I was making the rate I wanted to on the job, I was still giving up a week worth of my time in the office for a job that I may or may not get. And I know that there's plenty of companies out there who do that and offer that. I just spoke to my buddy who put together a proposal for a $20 million job, and they got it. And I said, damn, like how much do you think that cost you guys to put that price together? And he's like, we think around 40 grand. That's amazing. Um, I don't personally believe that that's the way that our industry should be set up. Like, I just feel like that's a waste of money in a very price driven industry. And I know that that number is a big company and it's probably a very small percentage all said and done, even on a $20 million job. But still, it's just like, I'd rather put the 40 grand towards something that was more useful or just allocate that number specifically to that job. But that's neither here nor there. I don't have that set up. I don't want to have all of, I have 3, 4 customers in a year. To put a number like that and make all of my customers or all of my potential leads absorb those fees or all of those leads, my actual 3, 4 customers are absorbing all of those costs from jobs that I may or may not get just doesn't make sense to me. I would rather my customers just directly absorb the cost associated with their project rather than an overhead that I am really looking at, hey, how many hours, who do I need on staff, what do my estimating fees look like for the entire year? Now I'm going to spread that across the amount of work volume that I'm putting in place. I don't do enough work to support that model. It doesn't make sense for me. So for me, the sell is, if you want us to do your job, you'll pay us for the pre-construction. It'll be a part of the process. It has to get done in order to develop an accurate scope and accurate budget. But now you are not absorbing the overhead. My hourly fee, my rate, my markup does not um, account and does not hold the rate associated with all of the jobs that I'm bidding or paying people to bid and estimate over the course of a year. That's just the way that I operate, and it makes the most amount of sense for me. And I don't really enjoy that. Getting paid for it makes a lot easier, but it's not what I enjoy. I don't enjoy putting together spreadsheets and developing these scopes of work and everything else. But so this is what that looks like for me. And all I'm going to do today is go over the initial part of this. And probably in succeeding weeks, I'll go into, as I've developed this more, I will share what I'm doing. But at this point, where I stand with this project is we've um, not completely, but really developed a pretty comprehensive scope of work. And I've started attributing values to the project as far as cost goes. I've had estimates start coming in with subs. I've started meeting with subs. Kitchen design is in place. We're up to our first round of revision, so we're moving along. But I'm not completed anything yet. There's not one thing that's 100% completed, so I'm still in the midst of it. But the first thing for me is to develop this scope of work. So I'm going to get these plans and I'm going to develop a scope, basically a narrative. I'm going to create a story that I can pass to my subs, that I can pass to my vendors, and most importantly, I can pass to the customer for them to understand. It also helps me price this job. When I create this narrative, I've now built this job in my head and on paper. And that doesn't mean that it's accurate 100%. Like there's missing information. I'm making a ton of assumptions and I still can't account for every efficiency or inefficiency. But what I'm doing is I am creating a storyline that I can allocate numbers to so that when the work commences, I have a goal and a standard, and I can back everything that's happening up against that. So, my narrative, my scope of work, I don't need the answers to every question at this point. I don't need every single detail sorted out. I don't need every assumption to be a fact. All I need is to be able to quantify and document what all of those things are. So in my scope of work, if there's an assumption, I state that it's an assumption. If there's a concern of mine, I just document that concern. Um, for example, they want to replace all of the hardwood floor on the first floor. An assumption that I wrote in this scope of work is that um, the staples or cleats or whatever is attaching the hardwood floor, for the most part, will be removed when we remove the flooring. I have demoed jobs before where we pulled up subflooring and it's taken us 3 hours to remove the flooring and subflooring and then 2 days to remove the staples. And it was in a house where we couldn't remove the additional subfloor um, because there was finished space below it with a drop ceiling where if we started remove the more that we remove the more mess we made downstairs, so it ended up being selective demo. These are things that I've ran into before that I don't know what the subfloor is like. I don't know how easily it's going to be removed, but if I say, hey, I think it's going to take 2 days to demo the floor and a half day to clean the floor up, prep it, and re-screw it to accept the new hardwoods, if it doesn't end up being that way, it's okay. I can manage that budget accordingly, but now I can go to the customers and say, "Hey, this is what we thought we were going to run into. This is what we're running into." So developing the scope of work for me. Also, I can then send that to my flooring sub and say, "Hey, this is what I'm accounting for. Let me know your numbers. Let me know if your labor rate matches up with this. You tell me what it's going to cost, what your assumptions are, and I'll put that into my scope of work so that I'm protecting my subcontractors. So when my subcontractors go in and they run into something and they assumed it was going to be different, like we're everyone who's bidding a job wants to get it as accurate as possible. They don't want it to be more, they don't want it to be less, but they're still guessing. So they're doing their best. They're not trying to gouge somebody after the fact. They're not trying to come in with a low price. We're trying to create a fair price for this. We're also not trying to inflate that or underinflate that where we're losing money. So I just want to create this budget um, that's as accurate as possible given the information that I have. And I don't always have all of the information, and that's fine. I don't need all the information, but if I don't have it, I need to document that and I need to make an assumption and I need to document that and I need to quantify that somehow to the best of my abilities. That's all documented. So right now, I'm developing the scope of work for this job. It's been 6 hours today, an hour and a half, or 6 hours yesterday, an hour and a half today, just developing scope and beginning to develop my budget. So that's 7.5 hours right now. I think I budgeted 40 for the entire thing for this job. I'm still not done with that aspect of it. And that is a pain in the ass, but at the same time, I understand I'm getting paid for it, and it helps me put the necessary time in and do my due diligence to accurately develop this scope of work and develop this budget. So I've gotten paid up to this point to do that, and I will continue to do so. If I go over budget by a few hours, I'm not going to go back to my customers and be like, well, I was 2.5 hours more than I anticipated. I'm not going to do that. I got compensated for most of my time. They trusted in me to do that. So we'll stick to the normal price. If I have a customer that keeps changing things, they can't make decisions, they go back and they revise plans 3, 4 times, and we eat up that budget well before, like with 50% of the work put in place, then I go to them and say, as we're coming up with those numbers, hey, we're at 32 hours and we've revised everything that we're not even halfway there yet. I only budgeted 40 hours to here. So we need to make some headway. We need to really dial this in the next day or two worth of work. If not, we're going to have to charge that hourly rate to do more because this has been considerably more work than we anticipated. That was completely out of my control. So that's what I'm doing and how I'm managing this pre-construction, ensuring that I'm fair to my customers. I'm not getting burnt. If I have to send stuff back to my subs 2, 3 times, that's exhausting. Like, I don't want them to do that. I don't want to do that. And it's not fair. So I am creating some accountability with my customers where it's like, hey, if we're going to go down that route and I have to meet my subs out there 2, 3 times, I need them to be properly compensated for that. And I need to be properly compensated for that. I don't expect anyone to do that for free. And I don't want my customers to either. Um, so that's where I stand with my pre-construction here. There is a fair amount of overlap. So I take when I'm creating this scope of work and this narrative, I'm going through I have a line item spreadsheet budget that has every task that could be associated with a remodel, a new build, a renovation, whatever it is, all of these line items. So one of the first things I do is I go through that line item and that budget, and I start deleting rows that are not associated with this project, right? Blower door test, not associated with this project. Um, a new boiler, not associated with this project. A new electric service, not associated with this project. So I developed this line item budget where now I have every single line item that is in this project. As I'm going through the drawings, there's notes that I'm taking. For example, I got pricing back from my framer, and he said, um, we will cover the addition and the home with tarps if need be during construction, but we will not provide the tarps. So I go to my line item budget and I go to my scope. So my line item budget, I'm going to roofing and materials, and I'm putting a number in there for tarps for this project. If we use that, okay, the number's there. It's padded for. If we don't use it, fine. We just made up a little bit of money in the budget elsewhere. But at least I have a number on that right now. The goal is not to come in low on this project. The goal is to cover everything and the unforeseens that we may run into and be accurate, or as accurate as possible with the information that I'm given. So what I do is on that line item budget, I take all of those line items and I bring that to a document so that as I'm developing the scope of work, I'm able to reference all of these line item budgets and make sure that, hey, um, while I'm developing the scope, I'm accounting for everything and every item that pertains to this project. Um, I was developing a scope of work for the structural steel, and I sent it out for pricing. And the lady told me, you need this, this, and this for pricing. And I said, well, I'm not ready to get there yet. I don't have the engineering drawings for that. I'm just trying to get a price. When the price came back, it was based on assumptions. She also didn't include any of the structural hardware. So as I'm developing the scope and this line item budget, which are somewhat hand in hand, I'm noting on there that I need to put a budget in for the structural hardware and what I need from the engineering perspective, and that I'm not including the engineering costs of what sizes we need specifically for the steel, the whole mount, or the shop drawings for the whole placement, the punching and the flanges, all of that stuff is in my line item budget and in my scope of work, so that as I'm pricing this and as I'm developing scope and as I'm developing the job, I don't forget about that. So when we go to sign the job up and I say, hey, we need the engineer to give us shop drawings and determine what size we need for this beam based on the loads, the customer can't say, well, I assumed that you were going to do that. You're the contractor, you're the builder. I can do that, but I'm not accounting for that right now. So that's nothing that I have a number on. I can also say that, hey, we will need this done. My engineer is going to charge this much for that. And I can put a number in on that it's accounted for. And it may or may not be close to accurate there. But it almost doesn't matter. It's neither here nor there. It's as long as it's accounted for and that it's spelled out and that what is included and what is not included is there, so that when we go to do it, I have a leg to stand on. If I don't develop the scope of work that the customer can digest and read, if I don't develop this line item budget, I don't have anything to stand on when things don't go according to plan, when things don't cost the same, when they take longer, when they take less time. I can't properly manage a budget if I don't properly account for that budget and the scope of work in the first place. Um, all of these little things, right? The bolts, the tarps, it may not seem like a lot, but assume you have a 300 line item budget, which isn't that much. And then assume you miss $50 worth on each of those line items. That's 15 grand. That's a bigger number when you think about it, like, especially if that's just coming straight, if there's things that you left out that you shouldn't have or you didn't properly articulate, where that's just straight coming out of your budget as an owner operator, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of time. That can be 3 weeks, a month worth of your fees and your labor that you're not making because you didn't account for that or spell that out in your contract, and in your pre-construction. So all of those little things add up. You should be accounting for them in your budget. So if you don't, if you missed it because it wasn't there, or there were unforeseens, or it's different than you anticipated, now you can charge for that. If you just missed it by omission, that's probably on you. That's a conversation to have with the customer, and you have to have a gut check there as far as what's fair and what is not fair realistically. Um, but for me, again, I just want to take a little bit of time and shed some light on what this beginning stages of my pre-con looks like. It's developing this narrative, this scope of work. It's taking my line item budget, refining that, really distilling that down to all of the items that are going to be accounted for and that we will experience on this project, and then using that line item budget, um, to create my narrative, create my job scope, and then also using that job scope and those line item budget tasks to populate my line item budget. So there's a bit of overlap there, right? I'm doing things sometimes twice. It creates some inefficiencies, but at the same time, that redundancy creates accuracy. Right? When I go and I see this and then I have to transfer it over there and then I realize, well, I forgot this thing, and now that I'm looking at that and now I'm back through the plans, I missed it on the scope of work, but when I'm going through and I'm pricing things out, I noticed it. So that redundancy and that overlap creates the best opportunity to establish an accurate budget for me. Probably faster ways to do it. There are faster ways to do it. There's things that I change every time that I do this, and it's not a perfect system, but it's a comprehensive system. And it protects me, it protects my customers, and it gives my subs, myself, my customers the most accurate budget based on the information that we have, up front. So that's my intent with this. That's my purpose with this. This is hard to do if you're not getting paid for it. It's a lot of work, but you have to do this if you want to be executing a job adequately and creating a good user experience, and treat your subs fairly and maintain employees, and maintain a good reputation. All of this needs to be done. It needs to be done before the job starts. So why not do it now? Like, do it now and have whoever is going to be running that job and working on that job doing that, so that when the job comes up and they need to circle back on this, like, they just need to brief themselves. They don't need to relearn everything. They don't need to learn it for the first time. So in my opinion, this should be done now. When I go to do this job and I can review this as we go to do drywall. I can look at the assumptions that were made. I can look at the scope that we accounted for. I can look at the schedule and how many days I accounted for. And I can keep really close tabs on what's going on, where we stand, if there's cost overruns, if we are under budget, and how we can manipulate the budget to hopefully get these customers in and get what they want, for that number. A lot of times it's unavoidable. My last project, it was absolutely unavoidable. We were hundreds of thousands of dollars over budget for unforeseens and rot, but we managed the existing budget almost to a percentage point, um, and the scope almost exactly. There were things that were out of our control, but we did our best to ensure that the customers were able to make the decisions necessary as to how they wanted to spend their money. There were a lot of circumstances that was not possible. But that's how you establish these budgets. That's how you manage these budgets. At least in my world, at least with me being an owner operator, I don't have 3, 4 subs for every trade. That's not how I work. I want to treat my subs fairly. I want to have a level of trust with them. I don't want to have to shop them all the time. So I don't want to kick tires. I don't want to waste their time. So the way that I operate may be different than a lot of other people, but I know that there's a lot of guys and girls out there who operate in a similar manner to me, that are very small, that don't necessarily want to grow. They don't want a huge team behind them, but they still struggle with this end of things because they're not getting paid for this portion of the work. And it's probably because you are not bringing enough value with this. If you can prove the amount of work that goes into it, if you could document the cost, if you can document, what goes into this, and then provide that much value for your customers, it doesn't make sense not to do this on a big job. On a small job, it has to get done in order to execute a job properly. So this is how I do things, and I think that a lot of you could probably do things the same way. I haven't always done it this way. What I'm doing now has been like this very organic growth and shift and a lot of adaptation to get here. And a year, 2 years from now, there's probably little things that I'm going to change out that'll work better. But right now, this is creating a really good opportunity for me to get paid for my time, for my subs to ensure that they're not shot pricing stuff and getting fatigue from pricing stuff from me for jobs that I don't have. And it also affords my customer peace of mind that they're paying somebody to develop this and they will be provided with a ton of value in doing so. So as always, if you have questions about this, if you'd like to know more about this, if you'd like to integrate this into your business, depending on how you're set up, where you are, shoot me an email. If you want to hop on a call to discuss it, we can do that. If you have a quick question, can probably answer it for you via email. But if I can help you out in any way or enlighten you and explain anything, there's a ton of stuff going through my head right now. There's a lot involved with this, and I'm knee deep in it right now, and it's hard to sometimes to accurately and concisely describe what I'm going through. But if you have more questions, you want to speak more in depth as far as how I'm doing this and what this looks like, definitely reach out to me, Tyler at trghomeconcepts.com. And also, I appreciate all the emails, all the phone calls, everything. It's really been a good time. I've been enjoying it. I've been enjoying just sharing what I'm doing, whether right or wrong. It's been working for me, and I hope it's made my life a lot easier. And it's financially um, been. I don't necessarily want to say lucrative, but it's just like it creates better financial health, and I don't feel that I am having to work 10, 12-hour days and that, I need to have 6 jobs lined up and I need to be booked out 2 years. Like the on the job work is not the only thing that's paying me now. And that really creates a different business and a different lifestyle for me. So I hope this all helps you. Thank you very much. I will catch you guys next week. Adios.